to a situation that took place this week. A CTA rider, a woman, 26 years old, on the CTA train, the Blue Line, who was attacked viciously. A man poured gasoline on her and set her on fire. She is still fighting for life right now, has been in critical condition this week, and the governor says that when you're addressing the Safety Act, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. One, the judges can keep people in jail when they deem that person to be a danger. He says it's better than bail because bail is an automatic out for people who have money. But he also says that he's always willing to look at whether the Safety Act needs amending. I want to go ahead and bring in our legal analyst, Karen Conti from Conti and Dolan, to talk a little bit more about this particular case that has so many people talking this week. Thank you so much for your time, as always. I think you're on mute right now.
There we go.
It's all right. We kept you holding there for a moment. Thank you, though, for being on the line and waiting as we were listening into the governor there. You know, one of the things that I know you're well aware of, if you've read over this case, is the long arrest and criminal history that this man, this Lawrence Reed, the suspect here, has. He had a day in court today. What happens after this? I mean, if you're dealing with somebody with this lengthy of a record, do they look to see if they are mentally competent to stand trial?
Well, this is a really interesting case because this was not brought by the Chicago Police Department under the state of Illinois laws. This was a federal action.
Right.
He was with terrorism, and that's a very serious crime. It's very rare. In fact, I don't know of another case where there was something like this that got charged with terrorism here in the Chicago area. And yes, he had over 70 arrests, about 17 convictions, and he obviously, if you look at his record, has mental health issues. But what's going to happen here with this charge is that he will be assessed as to whether or not he is mentally competent to stand trial. And this is different than the insanity defense. This is whether he can even participate in his own defense. So he will go to a psychiatric facility where he will undergo very rigorous testing to see if he's competent to stand trial. If he is competent, he will be tried and he will be detained in the meantime. If he is not competent to stand trial, he will receive medical attention until he is competent to stand trial. And if he never reaches that level, then he will be probably given a hearing to see if he will be incarcerated in some sort of mental institution unless and until he gets better.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that he was put out of a psych ward in the past for knocking a woman out in the psych ward. So it just kind of begs a lot of questions as to how do you handle someone like that who's already been put out of a psych ward?
Yeah, I mean, they have different levels of facilities. And I think because this is charged in federal court, there are going to be maybe a larger amount of facilities that he can go to. I mean, certainly there are people like him, unfortunately, that walk this earth. Yeah. They are mentally ill and they are violent. And they, they need to have a certain level of security. And if that means they have to be locked and tied down, that might just mean that that is what happens. So he will definitely be assessed and he will definitely stand trial or not. And my guess is that this man is probably not going to get out of any prison or any mental institution.
Yeah, what do you make of the governor's comments just moments ago? I was kind of detailing before I came to you, where he's being asked about the Safety Act and this aspect of it. The state's attorney's office, even before the Safety Act was implemented, and now that it's been implemented, had the opportunity over the course of these 70 plus charges over the years to not have him walking the streets. And if it's left up to a judge to deem the person a danger, how did we end up in this situation?
Well, first, many of those charges happened before we had the Safety Act.
Right.
The Safety Act really doesn't take away any judge's right to keep somebody in prison, right, in jail, and in a holding cell. That it has nothing to do with it. It's just whether money is an issue. And as the governor aptly said, if you have money, if this guy had money to get out, he would be out. If he doesn't have money, he's going to be in. But that's not what we should be focusing on. The Safety Act gives judges the complete authority to say you can't get out. Money has nothing to do with it. You're a danger to society, and in my opinion, you need to be in until you're tried.
Yeah. So how does arson become a federal terrorism charge? Because even if we're talking about charges of his from the past, arson was one of them before it became setting a person on fire. Arson was one of them. And again, he was back out on the streets after an arson charge. So how does arson become a federal charge?
Yeah, the terrorism law has a bunch of different crimes that can be terrorism. So, like assassinating a public official, doing something at an airport, anything that has sort of a federal and national element to it. This particular charge has to do with him committing this arson on public transportation. And that makes it a terrorist charge under the federal law.
Yeah. So the location of where it took place.
Yes.
And what would be the possible penalties for this?
Life in prison. And there is a possibility, if this victim passes away, they could probably even try to charge him with the death penalty because the federal death penalty is still in play. We do not have one here in Illinois under state law.
So we're working with federal charges right now that could lead to either extensive time behind bars, extensive time in some mental health facility, or even the possibility of death should this woman not recover. And obviously we are hoping that she makes a full recovery, at least physically, from what's taken place here. Could the Chicago Police Department, though, come right back on top of those charges? I mean, is it even worth pursuing if the federal charges are this extensive?
I think what's happening here is the Chicago Police Department is backing down and letting the feds take this. Why? Because that law is extremely strong. And that law could put him in prison the rest of his life. And I think that what they're saying is we're going to defer to you federal authorities, and in the event there is an acquittal, or in the event there is something that goes awry and they cannot keep him incarcerated, my guess is that the Chicago authorities are going to arrest him and bring charges as well.
Yeah, and I want to read over the statement that this young woman's family put out overnight. It says, "We would like to thank everyone for their prayers and well wishes as our daughter receives care for injuries sustained earlier this week. We are also grateful for the excellent care and support of the burn team at Stroger Hospital. We will not be providing updates at this time and ask for her and our privacy as we focus our attention on her and her recovery." And they're thanking everyone for their attention to this matter. Just kind of thinking about the long term here, would there be any recourse that she would have, like on a civil level, again, to top off these really serious charges?
Yeah, well, there's a possibility of bringing charges against the local authorities for not keeping him in prison. Those are really hard cases to take because the government has so much leeway and so much discretion in what they do with people. But this could rise to the level. I mean, if you have 70 charges, 17 convictions, mental health issues, and he wasn't incarcerated and he was given electronic monitoring, and here's a guy who can't, follow any rule of society, maybe that could be a successful lawsuit. I also think there's a possibility of the family, if they choose, to sue the CTA. Why? Because this guy was violent on an L before. He was guilty of throwing bricks and breaking windows. He was guilty of assaulting people in or around the L. And I think that, he had a valid ticket or a valid pass. So how do you give a pass to someone who has a history of violence? I don't even know if there's a means to screen people from staying off public transportation if they have a history of doing these kinds of things. So my guess is that if they choose to do it, they probably have an avenue.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge consideration. I wouldn't have even thought of them. And how do they keep, or are there people who are banned from the CTA indefinitely?
Yeah, that's something I would have to look into. And, you can go online and buy a pass. And does that mean you go through a background check? No, it doesn't. So maybe there's legislation that should be passed that has some sort of protection, because when you get people in a confined area like this, and people are like, this poor woman was just minding her own business, people going to their jobs to work hard to support their families, and you're in this contained environment, it's a very dangerous place when you have people with mental health issues. And now with people having guns when they shouldn't, that's another issue that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. Are there some other pieces of legislation you think will come from this incident? It's sad, but sometimes the worst types of situations actually being the catalyst for major changes.
I agree with you, and you would hope that a bad situation would result in something that would protect somebody in the future, even if it's just one person. And I see this as a mental health issue. And when you say mental health, people say, well, you're being soft on crime. No, I'm not, because mentally ill people generally are not violent. In fact, the vast majority of them are not violent. But when you have a person who's violent and has mental health considerations, that's hard for the prison system to handle. So there needs to be a specialized place and a specialized way to deal with people who have these issues. And maybe we need better facilities, better training, and better funding for keeping people locked up if their mental health is not going to recover.
Yeah, 70 priors seems unthinkable, but is that even the worst that you've seen?
Not really. There are people who spend their lives in and out of this system, and it's very unfortunate, and I've seen it over the years. And again, we are not equipped to deal with it. He probably was medicated at some point, maybe got better and competent to stand trial. He was doing well, and then he goes off his medicine. He's maybe homeless. He doesn't have family support. And here you have him doing the same thing again. So it's hard to keep track of these people in a system as massive as which we have in Cook County.
Yeah. Are there any other takeaways you think, or that you are taking from where we are in this case thus far?
Well, I like the fact that the federal government has come in to bring these charges, because these are serious charges. And, I hope that the families out there who have people who have mental health challenges really try as best they can to take control of their loved ones. I know it's a very hard thing. It's very hard to get somebody civilly committed if they have mental health concerns. And, we have gun laws now where we can call up and say someone's got a gun and he's not doing well. Red flag laws that can have them come in and take their guns away. And I really encourage everybody who has somebody like that in their family or close to them to take that action so that somebody doesn't suffer like this poor woman here.
It is just, it's such an unthinkable and sad case. Thank you so much, Karen. We always appreciate you, Karen Conti with Conti and Dolan. Happy Thanksgiving if I don't speak with you before.